Welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine, and a week of debate, I suppose. It's a discussion I've had many times over the years when talking about wine, the discussion of labels and just what an impact they have. For me, they have more of an impact than they probably should. Ultimately, it really should only be the wine in the bottle, but we're human. We see something, we reflect on it, we react to it, and that can determine what we think of a bottle of wine, whether we decide to buy it or not to buy it, to order it or not to order it. And so if you're making wine, creating a label that's going to speak to your hopefully target market is a really important aspect of the entire business. We can go back 30-40 years to when wine labels were all fairly similar. They all had a reasonably uniform look. You then compare them to today and things are very different indeed. And the discussion in particular was inspired by receiving some wine from Carrol Boys. She got hold of me through her team on Instagram. It's the modern world, that's how these things work, and sent through some wine that celebrates the designs for which Carrol is now famous and for which my wife generally spends about half of our monthly income, such is her fondness for Carrol's work. She does great work in terms of design. She's translated that into the bottles, and in just a few moments we'll discover whether the wine inside the bottle matches the quality of a very eye-catching design. But before that, I've got a few other bottles that I think have interesting designs, tell interesting stories, and will perhaps kickstart something of a debate just how important the label is, how we determine what we will or won't drink based on that label, and whether we're heading in the right direction here in South Africa. So the first label I've gone for is Ataraxia, or as some South Africans might have it, Ataraxia. This is an estate in the Hemelanada Valley. It's one that's got an indirect link to Dan Really Likes Wine. The other director in this small wine business is a guy called Michael Jordan. Michael's invested in 35 million businesses around the world, and one of the businesses he has lent his weight to is Ataraxia and Kevin Grant, who's a celebrated winemaker, and rightly so. If you haven't been to Ataraxia, it's well worth a visit. The Hemelanada Valley as a whole is quite superb, but this place in particular is worth going to. The tasting room's got a chapel feel like to it, up on a hill overlooking the Hemelanada Valley. It's a little bit of a drive to get there, but it is a drive well worth making. And the wine that they produce, in particular this Chardonnay that we're about to taste, has always been very well received. But what I really like about it is the design. It's a lovely simple piece of art. It's a clean, fresh design, and it's one that just speaks to not just the wine, but also the feel to the wine, the feel to the estate, the feel to the brand. I hate looking at a bottle of South African wine that I see in Tesco or Sainsbury's, and I've said this on many occasions, and it's a couple of giraffes, or it's a Zulu motif, or it's something that says Africa and tries to sell Africa and this tourist feel as opposed to the quality of the wine. This speaks, I think, more to the values, to the sense of the essence of the wine. I really like the art, I really like the label, and on past experience, I think I'm really going to like the wine as well. If you mention the Hemelanada Valley to people, they tend to think of Pinot Noir, and understandably it's home to Beauchard Finlayson, to Creation, to Newton Johnson, to Hamilton Russell, to La Vierge, a collection of outstanding estates that produce some excellent Pinot Noir, good as anything in the world. But as a result, the Chardonnay sometimes gets lost, and all of those estates I've just mentioned also make fantastic Chardonnay. And Ataraxia is an extension of that celebration of Chardonnay in Hemelanada. They just make it so nicely. The Pinot Noir gets loads of accolades, and I agree with that entirely because it's glorious across the board, but the Chardonnay does deserve just as much attention. It really does. This is a really complete wine, and it's one I think Kevin Grant is rightfully proud of. But I think it also just speaks to the label as well. It's a great example of the label and the wine really sitting on a similar level. The label says elegance, it says artistic, it's eye-catching, and the wine leads into that beautifully. And for me, that's a really nice affirmation that the guys who are making the wine and the guys who are marketing the wine and designing the wine bottles and the labels are all coming from the same point of departure. And that, I think, is really important in terms of selling what is a really great wine. To continue the debate on labels, I've opted for this. Now, you might look at the label and think, well, okay, it looks nice enough, but it's nothing earth-shattering. It's more for what it's not, and it's not what it used to be, which was the label until I think just a year or two ago, which was fairly nondescript. It was all clean and nice, just some basic lettering. It said it was Waverley Hills, but it didn't really speak to the brand. It didn't speak to the ethos of a wine that really prides itself on its organic nature. This is wine to be drunk while having a checked shirt, a vegetarian meal, and a nice big beard. So I'm on my way there. And what they've got now, you can see with the protea, with the bird life, it's just a more natural feel. It speaks to nature, and throw in the fact that it's a Grenache, which is very much your wine of choice for a hipster, then I think the labelling is headed in the right direction. It just speaks to me more of what I think Waverley Hills is trying to say. They've always made wine that I've really enjoyed. The organic has been a bonus, the fact that you just feel a little healthier and a little better about yourself when drinking it, but now their packaging, I think, speaks more to the wine they're making. Ataraxia, the estate tasted just before this, has a blend that they call Serenity, and Serenity would be great for a wine for Waverley Hills because that's exactly the sense you get. It's a very calming, soothing place to have lunch, have a couple of glasses of wine just outside of Tulbach. I've been there a number of times over the last few years. It's a wonderfully relaxed place to have wine, and this, their Grenache, is one I've had a couple of times and always enjoyed. And again, the labelling, the packaging comes into the equation, but for a slightly different reason. Where there, I'm thinking it's a very elegant, very graceful wine, and that artistic label speaks to the wine. Here I'm drinking a wine that I know is organic, that I know is free of chemical fertilizer, it's free of herbicides, free of pesticides, it's made in as natural a way as possible. And when I see the label, that just echoes what I'm thinking about when I'm drinking the wine. Does it have an actual impact scientifically on the wine itself? Well, no, of course not. It's all in terms of your sense of perception. But that perception does alter how I feel about the wine, and I'm drinking this and thinking, I'm being healthier drinking this, and I'm happy with that. So it's clever marketing, but it's also authentic, and that is really important. Then to having a bit of fun with labels. This is the Kruitier from the Kleine Wijn Koop. You've heard of them before, we've had them on the show a number of times, and they have a huge amount of fun with the label. They come up with a different Kruitier label each year, as well as a slightly different blend. In terms of the label, allegedly in the middle that is a rhino. I think it looks like an armadillo. That's an elephant at one end, and I think it's an otter at the other. They are guys who love the newer style red, the slightly lighter style, a bit of Grenache, a bit of Cinsault. This is a Syrah base, but lots of Grenache and Cinsault thrown in. And what I really like here is that the label plays off their approach to wine. They love wine, they're having fun with it, it's a frivolous approach to it. There's a real sense of joie de vivre to what they do and to who they are. They're all very creative people in their day-to-day jobs. They don't make the wine themselves, but they bring together a wine that throughout the time that I've tasted it has always been something that's been a lot of fun to drink, and that speaks to both them and here to their label. This one is the Sinachin. I've got no idea what that means or where it comes from. Like the label, I think it was invented after many bottles of the previous year's vintage, but it's just a wine you want to drink, you want to enjoy, you want to have some fun with, because the moment you see that label you think, whoa, this is cool, this is different, this is interesting, and bang, it's got you. The grapes here come from across the Cape, but it's all come together in a really playful manner. It's a light, fun, engaging red, yet you want to drink more of it because it's not just very good, but it's got a really nice essence to it. And once you have seen the label, once you know the story, that just adds to it. And so again, it's a really nice way of taking the packaging and taking the wine and bringing them together so that the whole is a greater sum than the parts, and they've done that really nicely. There won't be a lot of this made, there never is. The majority of it is drunk by the Kleine Wijn Koop themselves. But if you can get hold of a bottle, you'll have a lot of fun drinking it. And that's exactly what the Kleine Wijn Koop guys would like you to do. And then to the bottle that really got this episode going, that got me thinking in real detail about how we market, how we brand, how we present our wine. Wine from Carrol Boys. I think all of us would love to make wine, and for many people who've been successful, it's a natural extension. You've done well in your business, you'd like to, if you've done really well, buy a wine estate. If you've done reasonably well, you'd maybe like to start a wine label under the auspices of somebody else. In the case here with Carrol Boys, somebody who's synonymous with South African design, a really iconic South African figure whose work has spread well beyond South Africa. You can find Carrol Boys all over the world. I've worked into lounges and dining rooms across the planet, and lo and behold, there is a Carrol Boys candlestick or a set of salad servers or something from Carrol Boys. And the moment you see it, you know, that's Carrol. And the moment you see this bottle, you know that that's Carrol Boys. It's just the shape, the curves, the use of iconography that you can see immediately. And then it's the step into wine. What are you expecting? Well, I think something that's very elegant, very classy, maybe a little bit of quirkiness, because there is that distinctive style to the Carrol Boys look. This is a Merlot that they've produced. Merlot's not always thought of as the most expressive or charismatic or dynamic of grapes, although I'm not sure that's entirely fair. Try a bottle of Shannon's Mount Bullet and I think your theory might get blown out of the water. But this is the Merlot from Carrol Boys, and I'm intrigued. I haven't tried it yet. I love the design. I love the bottle. It looks really, really good. But what does Carrol Boys know about making wine? Who's she making it with? Have they come up with something that matches the kind of style, the kind of image, the elegance that Carrol Boys produces through the work with which we're already familiar? Only one way to find out. Much like the artwork of Carrol Boys, this is a limited edition, and it's one I suspect will sell out pretty quickly, partly because the wine is very pleasing. It's a very nice Merlot, nice cherry notes to it. I enjoyed it. It's a very smooth drinking wine, but mostly because this is just a very striking bottle. Like a coffee book, it's the kind of thing people want to collect. It's been made to drink the wine, but it'll be a very pleasing addition to the aesthetic of your cellar or your wine collection. And it does add, I think, to the discussion, and it's a very open discussion, as to what we do with wine, wine labels, and why we buy what we do and what we order what we do based on how they look. From the artistic feel of that Ataraxia to the very environmentally friendly feel of the Waverley Hills to the daft but lovely Creteer on the Kleine Wijn Koop's blend, to this Carrol Boys very, very striking wine, which adds to the collection of artwork. And this really is a piece of art that she's added to South Africa, and continues what for me is a fascinating debate. Why do we order wine? Is there an element in which the label dictates what we think we will or won't like? And how are South African estates, how are South African labels responding to our perceptions of what we think represents a wine that we want to buy? It's certainly a debate that's a long way from finished, but it's a great way to open a few bottles and pick it up from there. Enjoy. Cheers.